You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Good morning. This is Hope Knight, and before I call this meeting to order, I will note for the record that I will serve as the acting chair of today's meeting. I now call the meeting to order of the Audit and Budget Committee members of New York State Urban Development Corporation, doing business as Empire State Development, for Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. I will also note for the record that the public was given the opportunity to comment on the agenda by submitting their written comments by noon yesterday. I'd like to further state for the record that no comments were received from the public concerning today's agenda. The committee members have received the materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. I will note that since there are no voting items for today's agenda, we will not be calling for the committee members to indicate any potential conflicts of interest with respect to today's agenda. I will now ask Kathleen Mize, ESD's Deputy Financial Officer and Controller, to lead our discussion today on the first agenda item relating to the fiscal 2023-24 proposed annual operating budget and non-programmatic capital expense. Kathleen, please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Hope. Thank you. Good morning, members. So we'll be coming to the board today to ask for approval of ESD's fiscal 23-24 budget. We're statutorily required to do this before April 1, which is the start of both the state and ESD's fiscal year. The proposed budget for this year in its entirety is $137.5 million, and that includes $6 million of operating support to certain ESD subsidiaries. That's been a long-standing support that ESD provides to 4 of our existing subsidiaries. That's about a $24 million increase over the fiscal year 22-23 budget of about $113 million. Most of the increase is related to support for programs that are in the current fiscal year budget. Connect All, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI, are the largest two. And it's also support for what's proposed in the governor's fiscal 23-24 executive budget. And that's the Office of Semiconductor Expansion, Management, and Integration, quickly called GoSemi, or easily called GoSemi. And we expect that that office will be put through in the final budget. Of some notations to the budget are one of the income items. We're projecting about $33.2 million of support from federal and state funds to support these programs. So most of the programs I'm mentioning have outside support that will be coming to ESD. Reason for the escalation this year versus last year, Last year, they were proposed in the budget. They were so brand new. And it's now that staff and program guidelines and different things have been ready. So we're seeing really the escalation, the takeoff, the launch of it in this fiscal year's budget, 23-24. Just wanted to mention that while we're putting this budget through today, because we are statutorily required, obviously, if any changes are required to this budget after the passage of the state's enacted budget, we would come back to the board and ask for any changes or adjustments to the budget as needed. Just want to stop there for a second. That's just an overall, and then I just want to dive a little bit into expenses and a little bit more into revenue and the second budget. All right, so we are proposing about 79 million for staff and for staffing and fringe benefits. Our fringe benefit rate for this year has required an increase from 38% to 41%. We've carried 38% fringe benefit rate since 2015. So we've done very well managing costs here for the great benefits all employees get. But this year, there's been increases in health insurance as well as some of the other insurances, disability, long-term health insurance. So that's the reason for the increase. We analyze this on an annual basis, and we are hopeful that the 41% will carry us into some future years. And just as a little footnote, the state's fringe benefit rate is in the 60% range.
She's always so proud of that.
I am. I'm proud of everyone in the organization for that, especially our HR folks who really take care of that.
Are the benefits the same and the costs are just different, or do the folks who work in the DED get better benefits than those in the UDC?
I don't think I would say better benefits. Because they're collective bargaining, so there's certain agreements that they have that we don't have. There's steps, guaranteed steps within their salary grades. We don't have that as, non-collective bargaining employees. So there's a little bit different that requires them to have some different benefits. As far as quality of benefits, I think we're shoulder to shoulder.
Got it. Thanks.
No problem. So the staffing requirements, again, go back to the programs that I've mentioned, Collect All, SSBCI. We have our NISTAR division is also expecting some new grants in the new fiscal year. So they are going to require some additional staffing. And to support all this, we're increasing staffing in our IT area because, a lot of this requires new reporting, new methodology for, gaining access to programs, filing applications. We do some of it with consultants and we do some of it internally. The non-personal services expenses of 52.5 million, again, an increase there over last year, largely due to, again, I keep repeating myself, these programs, the launching of programs and consultants to assist our program folks in executing and launching the programs. That's in services area, technical assistance, outside counsel, transcription services for their program. So various things, and we that are required for them to successfully launch each program. The only other thing I wanted to touch upon is within our revenue funding sources for this fiscal year, we are in a way different interest environment than we were when we sat here a year ago, where we forecasted roughly less than $1 million in interest income, investment income. We are now forecasting over 20 million for this fiscal year. So that's been a significant change in our revenue. That is positive and a very good thing for ESD. Our treasury folks really manage our cash very carefully and watch and invest as much as they possibly can, short term and safe in the required modules we have to invest in.
Do we get to keep that, or does it get scooped up in the big black hole of?
We get to keep that.
Oh, that's good. I shouldn't have opened my mouth.
No, that's okay. And additionally, we are asking the board to approve what we call our non-programmatic capital expense authorization. That budget has increased from 6.8 million to roughly 13 million this year. Represents a large increase, and that is just to cover so many of IT initiatives and requirements that we need. Our IT folks want to put us in the cloud fully, just all, I wrote some of these things down that I can, remote access, better communication capabilities. There's increased requirements for our database of economic incentives. We have more reporting to do and enhanced reporting to do that our IT folks do that. Our Microsoft Dynamics program where we keep track of all our projects, we're enhancing that. And then we manage our financial system through PeopleSoft financial management system. And we're always making little tweaks to that. So all of this supports predominantly our IT needs throughout the organization and including the regional offices. As I mentioned earlier, we do support $6 million for our Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, our Harlem Community Development Corporation, Queens West, and our USA Niagara. And again, that's in the materials and stated in the materials for the board as well. That's about all I wanted to present. I know we don't vote at this meeting, but it's just, I look for your authority to present it to the full board, and happy to answer any questions.
Does any of the increased spending go to help us with the MWBE backlog application process, or were those funds given to us last year to help us address that issue?
Both. We
Okay,
have
so
the funding that's carrying forward, and we also are continuing our provision in this budget for that.
Oh, good.
So we have support in both areas.
So as stated earlier, there have been no comments from the public with regard to this item. Are there any other questions related to these presentations? So next we have Tom Brennan, who will make a presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. We are going to present our annual audit plan that we've drafted up. It covers both Empire State Development, ESD, and the Department of Economic Development. The Department of Economic Development is not under the oversight of the audit committee. But since we do both, and we like to present it so that we can show how our audit resources tie into our overall audit plan, which covers both groups of audits. We're currently working on wrapping up a few audits, one on the Small Business Recovery Grant Program, and also on venture capital. And we're moving into some other audits that we're beginning. I will be retiring at the end of April. So I've been here for 20 years, and it's going to be my swan song meeting, I would imagine. So I came in young and handsome, and I'm still young and handsome. Not quite as young and handsome, but
Congratulations.
well, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So basically, we've got a team currently of 5 people, and we have Steve Konopko, who's Vice President of the Department, Diane Hughes, who's an Audit Director, and behind you from Albany, we have Esther Buff, who joined us last fall, and Jimmy DeVito as well, who joined us last fall.
Next generation. Congrats.
So the average age dropped quite a bit when I left the department, and it'll drop a lot more when I retire. But I wanted to move on and let Steve begin presenting what's in the annual audit plan. Go ahead, Steve.
So for the ESDC side, we analyze the current environment, the new programs that, as Kathleen mentioned, and we did a risk assessment based on looking at some of the internal control certifications that the departments prepare. And we came up with a plan of a group of audits that we're going to begin the year doing. an audit plan is fluid. If things come up, like, for example, recovery came up, we had to move items in the plan to do a more high-risk audit. There's been times when management has asked audit to, hey, could you take a look at this area? And that would move items in the plan. But for the beginning of the year, these are the items we're gonna do. There's some new audits. This year, we're gonna be looking at life science initiatives as its own audit, more out of loans and grants. We're gonna look at another portion of the recovery and the seed, the 200 million seed. And we're putting on the plan the Office of Strategic Workforce Development, which is another new area at ESD that we're going to look at, as well as monitor the major projects coming down the pike as for Penn Station, the Erie Canal Stadium, and of course Micron as it develops. We'll look at those projects and look at the controls over those projects and make sure that the internal controls and over the payments, the contracting, the RFPs are properly being properly done. I don't know if anybody has any questions on the actual items on the plan that we proposed. Would we be willing to take those? If not, I was gonna let Diane go over DED.
Good morning, everyone. So the plan for the Department of Economic Development, better known as DED, we have allocated approximately 2,250 hours for these audits. We have the Division of Minority and Women's Business Development. We have 500 hours allocated. That program, along with the tax credit program audit, which includes Excelsior, are the two highest hours for audits for this coming year. We also are including two new programs, the COVID Capital Cost Tax Credit Program and the New York City Musical and Theatrical Production Tax Credit Program, which is a $200 million program. And then we are also including Global New York NYSTAR DED Finance and Link Deposit, which we audit about annually or every other year. And as Tom mentioned earlier, these audits are outside of the scope of the audit committee's responsibilities. So this information is just for reference purposes only.
And in Appendix C, what we always try to do is we try to match up our projected resources with what the plan contained. Plan is set up as of now, and my successor may change it. You know, that person's prerogative, but the plan as it's set up is aggressive, and it shows that during the upcoming year, we would have roughly 7,500 hours. We don't have that much in resources. We have about 6,600 hours available. So there would probably be about, I'm estimating maybe a month and a half of carryover until the following year to wrap things up. And then we'll continue it with our plan in the following year, which I think will also be a very packed schedule when it has not been developed into the 2024-25 year yet, but I think it'll be equally challenging for us. And I think beyond that, we had issued 3 audits of recently, and if you would like to just discuss those on the summary page.
Yeah, so we issued USA Niagara, which was an audit of the entire subsidiary. We looked at the current projects that the subsidiary had on the books. We looked at the closed projects. We looked at all aspects of how the subsidiary ran, and I'm happy to report that we had no audit issues on that subsidiary. It's running very well. The projects they finished from the last audit, and then the current projects seem to be very well managed from our audit results.
Sure. Yep. So we also did ESD loans and grants. So we reviewed the effectiveness and functions of the internal controls of the LNG department. And we found that all projects are overseen and processed in accordance with ESD policies. We did not find any issues. The procedures continue to be strong within the department. We also looked at the Small Business and Technology Development's Near Forward Loan, which was a loan guarantee program for small businesses throughout New York State. We provided a $10 million loan loss reserve fund, of which we have used over, I believe it's over $1 million. And we found the program to be operating effectively, and we had no issues.
So on an annual basis, for both DED and ESD, there's an internal control certification report that has to be completed and filed. It's mostly handled by Felisa, who's sitting back behind me. And we do assisting work to review, analyze, whatever we need to basically feel comfortable that the controls are solid, and really on a year-to-year basis, the controls here have been excellent. So that's gone well. And finally, I have a page listing the audit staff, which I thought I'd run through. I'll skip over myself. Steve's been with LMDC, our downtown subsidiary that's connected with 9/11. And he's been there for the last 18 years. He's spending most of his time with ESD, doing ESD audit work these days. Diane's been with us for 5 years, and she also had a considerable amount of prior experience before ESD. Esther has several years with her CPA firm experience and tax preparation experience, and she's been very helpful since she's joined us, been very helpful with what I've been working on recently. And Jimmy DeVito joined us in November. He did a lot of work on the loans and grant audit and did very well with it. And I think that pretty much summarizes our presentation.
Thank you. As noted earlier, we don't have any comments from the public with regard to this item. Are there any other questions from the directors?
Yeah, I have a couple,
Okay.
Tom. Thanks for the presentation, just for at least the new kid on the block. Can you just walk me through the process of how do you determine, all right, what are you going to audit? Is it based on a media report complaining about something that we're doing, or legislative inquiry, or do you guys just sort of have a cycle and every few years you try to cover all the bases? Yeah, how does it work?
Yeah, basically what we've been doing is we judgmentally rank areas in terms of perceived relative risk. And one of the main areas that we do as a company is involved with our grants. And there's a potpourri of grants. So typically we try to do a loans and grant audit. Generally, we try to start within about a year after we've issued the prior report. So there's never a big gap in between on that. On the finance side, we do some finance related work, but not a lot. We take into account a lot of what the outside accountants do on the ESD side. And we really tailor our work down to what would not be duplicative. There's a whole variety of programs. We look at things, could be any kind of risk, whether it's complexity of the project itself, it could be fraud related risk, or any number of risks with programs. And we take that into account to try to figure out when we're going to look at something and how much resources we'll expend on it. And also as far as just regular programs that are repetitive, we'll generally look at them anytime within an 18-month to three-year cycle. That's what we've been doing. And in some areas that we would consider very low risk, we'll either look at them now less frequently than that in an audit, or we may determine that we don't really need to do an audit. What we do during the work we do on the internal control certifications is really enough. And we just draw a conclusion on that as we do it, and we don't do any further work on that.
And do you prepare a draft first and then give management a chance to respond to any concerns or issues you may have before you finalize it?
Yes, we run it right up from the auditee, step by step, up the line.
And then once it's finalized, then what do you do with the audit? I don't recall being sent things directly. Are they just posted on our director's desk, or you share them with Kathleen and Hope, or
We've been emailing them out to the individuals that are on the report. We have not included yourself at this point. We could certainly include the ones that we've done recently.
Well, I don't want to be bombarded with 500 reports, but I think at least going forward,
Sure.
I think it's something that directors should be given and or at least posted on our director's desk, so we could leisurely look at them. I have two other questions. Again, sorry, the new guy in the block. What is the coordination, if any, with Tom DiNapoli's office, and can he audit anything in either ESD or DED, or is he limited to just DED? And is there any type of coordination or cooperation between what he chooses to audit and what we audit?
They can pretty much audit whatever they like. They've done ESD and DED. Generally, there has not been what I would call coordination, other than if they're in doing an audit on, let's say, broadband, we will not be in there at the same time doing audit work, just to stay out of the way. Nobody needs to be audited twice at the same time, so.
And do we know, does OSC have any ongoing audits of either DED or ESD at this point?
Yes. The only current pending audit right now is of our real property portfolio. It's pending. There's been a report issued.
So they haven't submitted the draft to us yet?
No.
Again, but typically, I know when I've run a state authority, when I was at LIPA, they would give us a draft and we would have a couple of months to respond to it, and then they would pretty much ignore all our responses and then just issue their audit anyway.
Same pattern.
Yeah.
Uh,
They usually issue us a final audit report, which is in the statute, and we have 30 days to respond, and we're not at that point yet with this audit.
Got it.
We're still going back and forth.
Got it. And last question, I think I asked this at one of the board meetings, I forget the answer. Do we, either ESD or DED, do we have our own inspector general as well? And do you guys report, submit or share information with that person?
No, we did not.
We do not.
There is.
If there is a state inspector general, and
Right.
if we
A
have,
state inspector.
Yeah.
ESD or UDC
No,
doesn't have their.
No,
We don't have one.
no.
No, I know, when I was on the FTA board, we had our own inspector general, and every sort of other meeting, she would, make a presentation to us. We would get copies of those types of reports, but we don't have that here.
No.
Got it. But the state inspector general could do anything he or she needs to do here or any other state agency.
Correct.
Got it.
if we had any if there was any suspicion of criminal activity or anything like that, would automatically go. There's certain categories that would automatically kick it to the IG, the state IG, any suspicions of.
So if there was like a whistleblower here trying to complain about something,
Yeah.
they wouldn't go to Kathleen
or-
or Tom, they would go to the state inspector general.
Yeah.
Got it. But we haven't heard from them in a while, and that's good news, right?
It's good news.
That's not the relationship with the IG. We refer things to them.
Yeah.
They can get referrals from state employees directly. They do training on it. And then if they have something that they issue or investigate, they can send it to our legal department, and then we can respond to them, or they issue a report. There are many, many ways we have interactions, but it's not ongoing reporting. They're case by case investigations.
Good. I think it's just good that it's nice to know we have all these belts and suspenders on. I know ESD, and we sometimes become a punching bag for those who want to be critical of various programs, and so it's nice to know that we have all these processes in place, and so I think it's good. So thanks for the presentation, and congrats on your next chapter,
Thank you.
and good luck to you.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions from the committee members? So yes, thank you, Tom, for your service. Wishing you well in your retirements. There being no other business before this committee, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Great. Thank everybody for your participation.
Thank you.
Yes.